Handbooks channel. Today I'm going to show an overview with a new player on the Castles and Crusades rule set in Fantasy Grounds. So our new player is Dale. Dale, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, David. Thanks for inviting me along to this, and glad to be here with you.
Thank you for joining me. I really needed help making this video, and what the goal of this video is to perform an overview of the C&C rule set in Fantasy Grounds, to show the differences of what other players might be used to, or dungeon masters that might be used to using like different rule sets like 5e. It's a darker scene, and I figured this would be more of a theme that I'm using for my campaign. So the first thing you'd want to yeah, it is pretty gory. So the first thing you need to do is the library. In the bottom right hand corner of the screen, there's a library icon, and it shows all the books you have installed. So as the dungeon master, I have the full license, and that means I can share all the products that I purchased with my players. So Dale, if you go to library in the bottom left-hand corner of that window, click on modules, you can go ahead and load any of the modules that I have available for my players. And the first thing you definitely want to load is the player's handbook. You'll see the C&C Player's Handbook listed there. I also have the Castle Keeper's Guide, the Player Companion, which is the player version of the Castle Keeper's Guide. So you can load that as well.
That's interesting. I didn't even realize there was such a book. I will definitely load that.
I'm not sure if that's an actual book you can buy physically. I think it's something they might have added for Fantasy Grounds. I also have the Castle Keeper's Guide as well, but I'm not sharing that with you.
No, and I wouldn't want you to anyway.
Another thing that's shareable is Trollord Games Campaign World Calendar, and I'm not sharing that right now. But if I was, you could load that as well. Also, they have a whole slew of modules you can purchase and share and use as a dungeon master. But the calendar I'm using is the plain old calendar from Smiteworks, because I'm using that for my campaign world. So that's the only thing you need. As far as available books, I'm not really sure what other books are available for Fantasy Grounds, but you can go to the Trollord Games website to find out what's available for Fantasy Grounds there. But this is what I've purchased so far. So now that they're loaded, if you click on the Player's Handbook in the library, you can actually read the book physically from there. Just like any other rule set, the book is available to read. You can read it by clicking on Player's Handbook on the right, and it'll come up with all the subchapters. You can click on them and read those pages, and it's like reading a PDF version of that book.
David?
Yes.
Is that Player's Handbook that I'm looking at now, is that enough information that a player can play without actually having to buy the book?
It is. In fact, it's the exact version of the Player's Handbook, but in PDF form.
Very nice.
Now, the links below that are just quick links to data from those chapters. Like if you click on spells, it'll take you to subcategories of the different spells, like wizard. And if you open up wizard, you'll see it's a list of the spells. It's not a PDF of that page in the book. It's a condensed version of the exact information you need from that chapter, which makes it a lot easier to use in game. And it's just like any other rule set, I believe, is the same way. So there's nothing lacking there. This is an overview of this rule set compared to what others are used to. And so far, what I've shown you is pretty much what you would expect. It's all there. In the library window is all the icons you can choose from to put in your sidebar on the right, just like any other rule set. I explained so far that everything so far, what you've seen is what you would expect of any rule set in Fantasy Grounds, and it's all here. There are some differences. There's some people say that it's not as automated as other rule sets, and I'll show you the differences there. But in regards to the functionality of the rule set, it's basically all there. Most of it's all there, and I'll have to go through this piece by piece to show what any differences there might be.
So there's enough to use the combat tracker, the party window, to set up encounters and treasure parcels, let's say.
There is. So The core concept of Castles and Crusades is supposed to be a rules light system, and with all the basics to be able to role play the game from your character sheet, and you can do that very well here, no problem. It's also the way it's presented. It's all about presentation. So you can present the game while playing in this game as a theater of the mind game. You can do that easily by referring a lot to the character sheet. Also, you can present it as a 5-foot grid focused combat system, and we all know that Fantasy Grounds is capable of doing that very well. So it supports both play styles, and I'll show you that too. So you can actually run this game the same way you would run at a live table in person, and you can use the basic menus, the basic character sheet to do all that, which is what I consider theater of the mind as well, but not necessarily. But you can actually run it like as if you were DMing behind a shield at a live table, and I've done that quite often without having to resort to any kind of automation. It makes it really easy to do that, and I'll show you what those things are. I know that like 5e, a lot of it is more ingrained, the automation, so you have to kind of use it to get it to work, where in this is more open and easily adaptable to use without any automation whatsoever, which is great. I've used it effectively in campaigns before. So let's go ahead and look around.
That's sort of central to the difference between C&C and a lot of other games, is that it really is less restrictive in rules. And because the rule set offers you so much flexibility, you get the same thing in Fantasy Grounds, I think, too.
Yep, that is true. So right now we're looking at the Castles and Crusades desktop, and it has the same functionality as you would expect before, with the dice and the modifier window in the bottom left-hand corner. So it still has the dice tower that I have my cursor on, and you can roll. The players can roll in there, and only the Dungeon Master will see those rolls, just like you would expect. It has all the dice. You roll the dice on the actual board, and the results actually doesn't do anything. But if you roll the die into the chat window, then it interacts with automation to the rest of the game. If you want to modify, if we're doing more theater of the mind type role playing, and you want to modify a die, so let's say the bottom left hand corner, there's a modify window, just like the base system of Fantasy Grounds. So you'll add +2. Let's say the Dungeon Master says you have a +2 to hit for some reason, and so you just add the number down there and roll the die, and that's automated as well. See, I got the +2 there for typing it in, so that's all the same, which lets you able to play more theater of the mind than less automated. So whenever I need to do something like that's the mechanic I use. I use the dice tower, I use the dice, I use the modifier window in the bottom left-hand corner. And you can pretty much run a whole game that way. So the next on my list is options. So real quick, before we go any further on that, there's an options window, top right-hand corner, there's a small window called options. And it's the same. I don't see any difference here from other rule sets that I'm aware of anyway. All these options are the same that you would expect. Turn things on and off, affect the dice, affect the non-player characters. So there's nothing special you need to know there. The languages button in the bottom left-hand corner is a submenu, and that is a little bit different. It's very bare bones. There's only like, let's see, I'll do the drop-down menu here. Oh, I'm sorry. There is more than I thought. So when you first open this, there's only like 4 or 5 languages that are predefined, and I've already actually filled these all out for my campaign. So if you want to pick a language for, let's say, Kobold, you click the drop-down window, you're going to have a lot of choices of different languages to use. These are fonts that the game uses, and it's all automated in the chat window when you talk to other players. So if they talk Kobold, they'll be able to see the results in the chat window, and only other players that can speak Kobold can understand it. So the language is much more to it than I would expect for somebody saying it's not as automated as other systems. It's actually quite a bit there, which is really nice. And then the currency by default might not be fully filled out, so you need to type these in and make sure it's in the right order. but it has all the fields. You can add more fields too, just like any other rule set. So that's pretty standard. And setup is just the first window you see when you first log in. It lets you go back to there in case you need to make any changes. So, but we don't have to go over that. It's the same. It's a standard menu that you would have in any rule set when you first log in. So we don't need to go over that. So this review is more based on what the differences are in this rule set versus 5e, for example. Okay, so next on my list is modifiers. We did that. That's the bottom left-hand corner. Modifiers on the fly you can use in the bottom left-hand corner. You just type a +2 or a -2 or whatever number the Dungeon Master tells you to type in there, and then it'll affect the immediate next roll, just as you would expect. Also, there's another window in the top right-hand corner called Modifiers. In the top right-hand corner, there's a menu. So this is what Castles and Crusades predefined for their rule set. It has these options, and these affect the next die roll. So before NPC, a monster, or a player makes their die roll, instead of manually typing in the pluses or minuses in the modifier window in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, they can choose one of these instead, and it'll affect the next die roll. So on the left-hand side, there's some common modifiers, and on the right is more that they've added, and you can add even more to that if you want to add more to your campaign by using the menu here. You can type in more of these modifiers if you feel like something's missing. And I don't believe I added anything myself. It looks all standard here, like flanking, rear attack. Also, there's a visible eyeball on the right to make that modifier visible to the players or not. But I believe this is all standard to all rule sets. There's nothing different about this. It's just basically what C&C, the person that coded C&C for Fantasy Grounds decided to put here. Okay, then next on my list is effects. So on the top right-hand corner, there's another icon called effects. On the left side of the effects menu is a list of predefined conditions. So these conditions, these effects, last on a player or an NPC or monster as long as the duration is that it's programmed for. It stays effective on that player, not just for one die roll. So on the left is predefined effects. There's no way of really knowing how long that effect lasts without you trying it and then looking at the character or monster on the combat tracker to see what the duration is. On the right-hand side is custom effects, which I've created quite a bit of. I've added quite a few effects to it. So charging and dodge and things like that came predefined with the rule set. Increased rate of fire, which is out of the CK guide, by the way. It's an optional rule. But I've actually added at the bottom here all these spells. So that's one thing that this rule set doesn't have is automation of spells. So for me to automate these spells to a certain extent is you have to either create them as an effect or create them as a weapon. So as an effect, I have like Shield of Faith spell right here. It gives armor class 2 and their ability is dropped by 2. Something like that. Protection from good evil, armor class increases the armor class by 2. So this effect...
How would I as a player use any of those?
The Dungeon Master or the player would drag these to the combat tracker or the icon on the battle map. And I'll show you that later. You can drag these over.
All right, good.
And you can make invisible and invisible. The column on the right is the duration. That's how many melee rounds they last for.
Gotcha.
So floating disc I added just for the heck of it. Because I want to keep track of their floating disc on their character. So it's 360 turns because it lasts a really long time. You're going to have to adjust these rounds because most of these rounds that I predefined in these spells are based on a first level character, and some of these durations last longer. So this is something more I had to do compared to like 5e. But we'll get back to that later when I get the combat tracker out. So the next thing, so the thing about the rule set. So I've been talking to Trollord Games, and they have it scheduled. They mentioned they have it scheduled to have it, the whole rule set revamped in 2021. I don't know for sure if that's going to happen or when it's going to happen, but they did talk about it. So hopefully that happens, and I expect it's going to be much more automated than it is now.
Yeah.
So the next section is reference material. This is more of an overview, so we'll continue with that, and I'll get into more details a little bit later as we go through this list. So on the right is images and maps, and you know, it's nice to share artwork or maps with players, and you can do all that, no problem. With theater of the mind is even more important. So right now I'm sharing some maps with the players right now. So let's see what I got here. If there's a letter P on the right hand side, that means public. That means you're sharing that map with the players. And so from the player side, you're not going to see this huge list of maps or pictures because you're the player. I'm looking at the Dungeon Master side right now. So just like you would expect from other rule sets, you have all your different groups. You have group functionality, yes. I created a whole bunch of groups for my adventure. So I'm going to go look at my maps real quick. And I'm sharing Kendall Keep. So let me open that up for you. I'm going to open up Kendall Keep.
Okay, I can open it on this end. That's one that you've got for players.
Okay, so on your end, you should see the whole keep, except for the middle, because I have Fog of War activated. You see that?
Hold on, I must have the wrong one open. Oh, I should be looking at the player map. I see. Yes, I see that now.
I don't believe I'm sharing the... Okay, good. So I can, just like any other rule set, I can use Fog of War to its full functionality, no problem. It's all working the same way. All the layers from the mapping tools, it's all there. The pins, the locations, the story, it's exactly the same. No difference at all.
Oh, yes, the pins. It's one of the nice features.
Yes.
The way you can highlight things and link them together with the pins too. It's quite handy.
So on the video, the viewers are watching the DM side, and that's you can see from my side. You can see through the Fog of War, that dark area. The DM can see what's under that, but the players, it's all black, and I can uncover all I want. So all I have to do is right click on it,
Yeah.
and I'll go to layers, and then I'll go to enter mask mode. And then I can control Alt and just start uncovering stuff. So next time we play, the players are going to see this street right here. So I'm going to uncover it. I'll uncover more to be more realistic. Let's see the buildings.
Oh yeah, so they see the street inside.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. So you can use this to great effect with Theater of the Mind. You don't need a battle map.
Yes.
As long as you have a visual aid. So I have other visual aids as well. Some maps I have here. I don't know what else I'm sharing. See, I'll look at keep on the borderlands, some maps here. I'm going to share.
I'm looking at Kendall Keep's gatehouse right now.
Okay, so I shared the Mender River. The
Meander River.
Meander River, yeah. So I'm sharing that.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of these with these really lovely pictures that you found.
Yeah, so that's great. So same functionality as any other rule set with Fantasy Grounds. It's all here, and I use it to great effect for Theater of the Mind type play, and 5-foot grid too, of course, because you can use this as player aids. So that's just an overview of the images and maps, and it's all working just as expected. So next, is character sheet actions. Okay, so we're gonna look at some characters here. Dale, I don't believe you have a character on your side.
No, sir, I don't.
So let me give you one. See if I can do that for you.
Either give me one or I can whip one up real quick.
No, because this is not going to be a player creation video. It's just an overview of the game, and I want you to see what I'm seeing. So let me go ahead and see if I can't give you a character. So I cleared owner. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you can go to characters. There's an icon called characters. Yep. And you should see blob, the character blob. Yeah, there you are. Sir. You got it. It says owned by Dale now. So you have it. Excellent. So I'm going to open it. I'm going to open it up. So we're looking at the same thing now. So I'm going to review this real quick. So we're at the main tab. The difference, this is where more of the differences between the rule sets occur. And a lot of it's surprisingly more automated than you'd expect. So the top, I'll start from the top, work my way down, and give you some commentary. So the name field, obviously, type that in. The race field, you type it in. There's no drag or dropping. It's not automated. The class field, you type that in. The level field, type that in. Player name, experience point field, which is not right. The right-hand side is how many experience points it takes to go up a level. And then the left-hand side is how many currently how many experience points you have. I don't know if this is even right. I didn't look it up, so I'm just going to put this much in there and see what happens. Oops. If it doesn't work, you have to click on it again. Okay, cool. Okay, so I assume that everybody already knows how to play Castles and Crusades at this point watching this video, but I just want to show you what the character sheets look like in Fantasy Grounds. As you can tell, it has all the 6 stats and all the bonuses on the right. Fine. It has +1 for having 15 strength. Also, these numbers double for savings throws and skill checks. And to do that is you left click on the bonus field, the gold field, those squares that are gold colored, and you left click and hold it down, and then you let it go into the chat window and it rolls it. And as you can see, that's automated. It says ability strength check.
Nice.
The player that created this character did not specify what his prime is. So to do that on this character sheet is you got to left click on the name of the ability, the attribute. So this is a half-orc cleric. You get 2, obviously you get 2 primes. So Dale, I'll let you do that. What you're going to do is you're going to left click on the name of the attribute and it'll turn it red, and that will signify that it's a prime. There you go. 19 wisdom. How'd you do that? Okay, so left click.
It's not a hard decision to make, is it?
So left click and choose a second prime. So real quick, there's an optional rule for having a secondary prime. I think that's what they call it. It's in the CK guide.
I think there's an advantage that allows non-human to grab a special attribute and create it as sort of like a half prime, if that's what you're talking about.
So to do that, you're going to click on the attribute again. It'll change the color to blue. So go ahead and click it again. There you go. That's how that works. And also, to be clear, it is automated. Yeah, go ahead and do that again, and make a savings throw or a skill check for Constitution, and you'll see it in the chat window. Aha! It's a secondary. Yeah, it's a secondary. Cool. So the secondary gave you a, well, I think you have to roll a 16 or higher, something like that. I forgot the roll. Oh, so when you roll, obviously from looking at the chat window, it doesn't tell you what you need to roll. It just tells you the words secondary or prime. So as a DM, you have to know, or a player, you have to know. You have to roll 12 or higher or 18 or higher. That's just something you have to know in your head.
Well, that's part of knowing the rules.
Yep, right? Knowing the rules. So your armor class is there on the right. Your armor class for not using your dexterity. Your armor class for touch. Your hit points are there. Your wounds are there. Temporary hit point field's there. Non-lethal field is there. And if you click on the mini sheet, right below hit points and wounds, there's a little field called mini. Anything that's gold is clickable. So you click on mini, another little sub window pops up, which is really convenient. So you don't have to stay on this tab when you're playing. You have this little menu. You can roll, move around on the desktop.
I see. So this pops up with those vital combat stats in case you have to click another tab.
Yeah. So that's nice.
Okay.
It's a lot more. There's a lot more surprising functionality to this rule set than what people expected, based on what they talked about in the forums. So you got your movement. Hey, I never tried that before. Oh, nothing happens. That's funny.
But the other thing
You can drag that into the field.
What you haven't dealt with is creating the macro functions.
Yeah,
we went through a lot of hassle trying to figure out how to get some of this stuff onto a macro function, and found that any of the goal patches that you've mentioned drag quite nicely to a macro one.
Well, at the bottom of the desktop, there's F1 through F12. So all the macro functionality is there. It works just like any other rule set. And of course, Shift F1, Control F1, Alt F1. I'll show you. See, that's Control, that's Alt, and that's Shift. So it's all there just like any other rule set. Great functionality. You can drag anything you want down there. That's clickable. So when you're making a race or a class, and there's special features that they have, like special defenses or movement or senses, I like to have my players type that in here as reminders. So, it's going to be in the ability tab already, but sometimes there's things in the class description that you might want to remind yourself of. So I have them type it in. Like I'll type in dark vision. I'll do that right now. Oops, dark, if I can spell it right.
Can you not just drag that out of the player's handbook?
No, I'll show you that in a second on the abilities tab. But up front on the first tab, I just like to type that stuff there as a reminder. It doesn't do anything, but it does do something in the abilities tab. But not all abilities you get from your character or class shows up in the abilities tab, and I'll show you that in a minute. So this pretty much wraps up this tab. On the right is initiative. There you go. On the right also is melee and ranged. Those are generic roles, where it says melee and ranged. If you want to do a generic role for melee for some reason or ranged, they're there. But you're not really supposed to perform combat from this tab. You're supposed to perform that from the combat tab. So we'll click on the combat tab. In the combat tab, you have your movement. So when you create a character, well, we're not supposed to talk about that. We're going to do that in another video. But you type your movement here under base. So on the left is an initiative. So if you want to roll your initiative, you left click on an initiative, turn that into a 10-sider, drop it into the chat window, and there you go. That's all automated as well. And also it's also automated for dexterity that break ties. It does that too. Then there's your armor class, without dex and touch. So it breaks it down for your armor, for the armor class bonus for your armor you're wearing, your shield that you're wearing, your dexterity modifier, any size modifiers. I would only use the size modifier on the spur of the moment during a particular combat. Then you have to switch it back. But I wouldn't really use that because whatever you type here is going to be permanent until you put it back. I would do on the fly modifiers in that bottom left hand corner modifier field, the gray field in the bottom left hand corner of your desktop.
Yeah.
Natural armor, deflection modifier, miscellaneous modifiers. So you can, whatever you need it for, you can use those. It'll actually affect the armor class immediately. But anything temporary, I would only use the modifier field in the bottom left hand corner. So on the right side, there's your bonus to hit. So you type that in from your character sheet. If you're doing generic melee fighting, just, I don't know, maybe you picked up a different weapon or something and you need to do a quick melee attack, you would use that one. So let's say you pick up a dagger and chuck it. Throw that. Even though the dagger is not listed below, you can and maybe add some modifiers on the bottom left-hand corner in case it's needed. Maybe you're prone and you picked up a dagger and threw it, so the Dungeon Master says you have -4 to hit from throwing a dagger from a prone position. So let's say we did that. Let's say the player is prone. He got knocked down for some reason, and he says, on my turn, I'm going to take that dagger from his boot, and I'm going to chuck it. So, okay, well, it's -4 to hit. So, okay, so I'm going to type in -4 in the modifier field, and then I'm going to do a ranged attack. And there you go. -4 to hit. I got a 1, so I missed.
I did much better rolling a 7 by throwing my morning star.
There you go. You're not supposed to throw your morning star, but I guess you could.
It's good one time, and it only needs to work once.
Okay, so the miscellaneous fields on the right are maybe you have some sort of special class skill you could add there. Maybe like a fighter would have weapon specialization. You could put the +1 here for that, but it's only to hit. So this field's only to hit. So you have to think about what you put there. I wouldn't put weapon specialization there because it's +1 hit, +1 to damage. I'd put that somewhere else. But that's what those fields are for, in case you want to modify it to hit for some reason because of race or class or something. But nothing temporary, something that's more permanent. But so, and then below, I don't know what SR is. Doesn't
Spell resistance.
Oh, so if your player happens to have spell resistance, then he could type that in there. Oh, then there's item and miscellaneous. So maybe an item you have, or maybe a spell effect you have or something will give you that spell resistance. You can type that in there. That's kind of cool. I didn't realize that was there. That because I'm running a first level campaign right now. That's really cool. I'm glad they thought of that.
And I'm run spots like that too. It seems to be anything that's gold is going to be calculated by the program rules set.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you get to alter that by adding to the fields where they're available.
In the bottom half of the combat tab, there's your weapons, where your weapons would normally appear. By the way, that's automated. If you add any weapons into your inventory, they automatically appear here. But
you have to add them to inventory as well, otherwise they don't show up there at all.
Right.
So anything that you manually enter in that part of the combat tab just doesn't work. That's what I found.
Correct. So the functionality is still all there, just like any other rule set. You can look at the weapon. This is a C&C weapon. So some weapons and some rule sets are a little bit more involved, maybe. But this is what this one looks like. Wield means one hand. So when you attack with a weapon, you have to use the gold field. So you hold it down and then drop it to the chat field, and it does and performs the attack. There you go. And then the damage is to the right of the attack field. It's that +1 modifier. I wish there was a way they could signify that's how you roll your damage. You know, they need to make a gold field around that too, maybe. But yeah, that works. If you double click on it, same thing. If you double click on anything, it automatically rolls it into the chat field.
Oh, that's nice to know. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I didn't know either until my last session.
Some of my players can use that as a good chat over the right side of a cannon.
Yeah, yeah. So if you click on the magnifying glass, you can adjust that weapon. You can customize it. The fighter was a good example of weapon specialization, +1 hit, +1 to damage. This is where I'd put that. I'd put the +1 here and +1 there for each, but it doesn't really tell you what they're for. You just have to remember it. What I would do is I would go here and type in weapon specialization. That way I'll remember that that's where I put them. +1 and +1. There, and then hit the magnifying glasses to stop that. And now, if you double click on it to attack, there you go. Adds it all up for you. So it's very automated. It works great. There's nothing different about that. I don't know why the mini window isn't working though. The mini window is blank. It should.
I noticed that as well.
It should be working, but I don't know why it's not. So the second line item under the weapons is something I custom created. So to get spells automated to a point, because they're not in this rule set, you can do that by theater of the mind and just use the rolls and the dice in the bottom left-hand corner and just manually change hit points or armor class or whatever on your character sheet. Or you can kind of automate it a little bit. So here's a good example of Cure Light Wounds. On Cure Light Wounds, if you right now, let's look at the main tab, and let's open up the mini. Open up the mini for the hit points, so it's off to the right, so you can still see it. now go to combat, and you're not going to attack. You're going to do the damage, because you don't try to hit with Cure Light Wounds. The Cure Light Wounds you don't try to hit. You just apply the healing. So double click on the damage field, and it'll cast it. But you have to target somebody for it to even work. So you have to.
I was just going to say it's not
as anybody that's used to Fantasy Grounds, about targeting is the same. You either have to target them with a control left click on the icon on the battle map, or you have to control click on the combat tracker character. You have to target somebody. So
okay, well, that makes sense.
I'll get to that in a little bit after we go through these tabs. So what I had to do, though, to automate spells is I had to create the spell down here. Also, you can also create dual weapons by creating multiple versions of that weapon. So you have -3 to hit on the left hand, on the primary hand, and the secondary hand would have -6 to hit. You can do all that, and I'll explain all that in character creation. But it's all automated if you want to do that. So anyway, the functionality is all here. Everything you would expect. So let's go ahead and go to the abilities tab. So you remember on the main tab, you had to type in the race and you had to type in the class. So normally, in 5e, you drag those in, it automatically populates your abilities tab. Well, you can do the same thing here. So what you do is you go to your classes and races menu. So I got them both open. So this is a half-orc cleric, I believe. So we'll go to half-orc. Doop. And then we'll go to cleric. Boop. There we go. So what you do normally is in the top left-hand corner, there's this little brown dot, and you drag that brown dot into the abilities tab. It'll automatically populate everything in that tab. So right now it looks like cleric has already been populated, and half-orc has already been populated. So whoever made this character.
Where are you dragging these?
So if you open up half-orc, the article, and you open up cleric, the article, in the top left-hand corner is a brown dot. And you would drag that brown dot over to the abilities tab right in the middle of the empty screen.
Gotcha.
And that it'll automatically, see, the reason I didn't do it on screen is because I knew what would happen. And what happened was it doubles everything, yeah. So you can right-click on those and delete them.
It doesn't add just one, it adds the whole package.
The whole package, yep. But the thing I was talking about earlier on the main tab is these abilities don't all appear. So if you go through these, there's dark vision, sense of smell. Well, there are certain things like this ranger modifier for being a half-orc. So go to the bottom of cleric. Certain little things you want to remember. Also, these abilities, if you read them in detail, there might be something specific in there that you might want to remember. And so I always have them type that in the main tab. So it helps play. Because, it's hard to play as you're playing, go through all your abilities and read them again. Like, what did that do? It'd be nice to have those pluses and minuses on your main tab. So you can remember you have them. Like, oh yeah, that's right. I have this bonus against orcs. I forgot about that. And what's funny is the paper version of the Castles and Crusades player sheet actually has those on there already. Well, one version does anyway. Real useful. Okay, so that was a good overview. Did you have any other questions about that tab? Okay, so
No, I don't.
Okay, so the inventory tab, we're not making characters right now, so we're kind of like doing an overview. The inventory tab is anything in the items menu, you just drag into there. So the items menu is on the right-hand side. There you go. And any weapons, equipment, armor, you just drag it on over. And if you want to put an item inside of a bag, like a backpack or a belt pouch, the location field, you just start typing it in as autofill, and it'll actually place it inside that container. And it's a lot more automation than you would expect. It automatically adjusts encumbrance because, as you know, anything that's inside of a backpack doesn't count against your EV value. It uses EV. And
so if you type a container in your inventory location, then it will give that treatment.
Well, let's give a good example. So find an item that weighs something. This is all filtered too. So I'd filter to adventuring gear. And also you can filter from the book you're using. I'm going to filter to Player's Handbook. By the way, that CK Player's Guide does have equipment too, by the way. Not much, but it's got some useful things. Okay, so you took I don't know, what'd you add?
I took a stack and I added a jaw. So now I want to put the jaw in stack.
You did it. So as you notice,
excellent. So for all little containers, now here's a trick.
You're correct. That encumbrance automatically adjusted for that, which is awesome.
This is what I would wonder.
I love it. The field on the left is how many you have. So like that chalk. Oh, see.
So pretty much anything can be a container.
Nope.
Watch for that.
No, that's not true. It did not lower the encumbrance when you did that. If you look at the shield, open up the shield and look at it. That brown dot on the right-hand side. You'll see that the type of that item is called armor. Armor types are not containers. It has to be a container for it to lower, to eliminate the encumbrance value of the item you put into it.
It just looks that way, that's all.
Yeah. So even though you did that, it didn't affect your it didn't lower your encumbrance. That chalk is still weighed against you. Also on the right hand side is the carried or equipped or worn icons. So you can affect what you're equipped and or not equipped. So that kind of helps too. So you can, just like you expect in any rule set, all that functionality is here. Pretty impressive. Okay, so that's the inventory tab. And if you add a weapon, it's going to automatically appear in the combat tab. But one version of it. So like if you get a bastard sword, you know, you can use it two-handed or one-handed. You're going to have to create a second weapon of the same as a two-handed version versus the one-handed version. So then you could use it either way. But
similar for daggers, but you can use a good weapon or as a throw.
Oh, let's try that. Nope. Some of that stuff is automated. So let's go ahead and do that. Go to equipment, go to weapons, find a dagger, and drag it into your inventory.
Okay, I have way up in here.
So you'd actually filter it to weapons, it'll be easier. Or you can just type in the word dagger in the search field.
Oh, I see it did automatically roll versions. Isn't that nice?
Is that neat? So anything...
Some of them it doesn't.
Right.
Like the hand axe, I believe, is one that doesn't, where you have to sort of manually change whether you're trying to throw on weapon.
Yeah, most of the missile weapons will automatically create two versions of itself, but some are not. You have to watch that. But I love it that they did that for dagger. It's great. And you have ammo. So in the ammo field, on the combat tab, in the ammo field for dagger, you might want to type in number 1 there. Watch what happens. There you go. So you got a little check mark. So go ahead and click it and see what happens. There you go. You just threw it. It keeps track of your ammo. Okay, so let's move on from inventory. You attacked with a dagger. Attack R. You just rolled an attack, which is R is for range, dagger. You rolled a 15 plus 2 to hit, so you got a 17.
Did all right.
Yeah, so that was a range attack. All right, so next tab, spells. So on the spells tab, the only functionality you have here is you can go to the spell book, open up spells, and you can drag the spells over. So we'll go to cleric spells. I'll filter it to cleric spells, and you can just drag the spells over. So when you're in preparation mode, that's the mode that you in the spells tab on the bottom left hand corner. There's a mode button, and you can cycle through them from preparation to combat mode to standard mode. Yeah, standard mode is good. So in standard mode, you can just, if you learn a new spell, you just drag it from the spells menu into your spells tab, and it'll add it to the list. So go ahead and add a first level spell. Just drag one over.
Okay, give me a second here. All right, you're gonna have to give me a hand with this because I've not done any spell work in FG or with Castles and Crusades yet.
On the right hand side, there's a spells. There should be a spells icon. Do you have that open?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I have that open. How do I find a first level spell?
So in the bottom right hand corner of that menu, there's a filter drop down menu, and you can filter to clerics. Okay. Filter to one.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So just drag bless over.
Okay. Did it?
Unable to determine level for a new spell, please drop within a level spell list.
So what level is bless? Level
First
1?
level.
Okay, so you need to drag it into the level 1 field.
Okay.
There you go.
Gotcha.
You did it. Oh, no. Bless is level 0. It's a cantrip. No?
Well, it's being filtered in the spells list as cleric 1.
Oh, I guess it is level 1. You're right. Let's see. It's cantrips. Yeah, it's a level 1 spell. Sorry. So what happened?
Okay.
What happened here is you dragged it into the wrong spot. You dragged it into the level 0 column. You need to drag it to the level 1 column. There you go. You fixed it.
The concept of level 0 spells as cantrips is a mind blow for my little head.
Okay. So standard mode is basically a listing of all the spells you have, and also list the check marks that you've cast a spell already. So right now, this player already casted Detect Magic. So then when you go to preparation mode, this is the mode you need to be in when you pray for your spells in the morning or memorize as a wizard. And you check mark the ones you want to pray for or memorize for that morning. So you can go ahead and as you see, like this, like the level 0 spells, it says cast 1 of 4. You've cast 1 of the 4 allowed slots that you're allowed to have. There you go. So prepare 3 of 4, 2 of 4. I see. Because you cast 1 already. That's why you can't do your last one. So that's how you memorize them. You just click these little check marks here. So that's all that's automated functionality. It works great. So so now you're in combat mode. So in combat mode, hit that little mini button on the bottom of the form. And there's another little submenu that pops up, and it has little check marks too, so you can cast them. Go ahead and cast Bless from the spells pop-up mini menu there. Click on Bless.
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, you didn't do it. Okay, in the spells tab at the bottom, there's a mini sheet. An orange. Open that up. So now you have a little submenu, right? That says spells.
I do.
So next to Bless on the left, you have to check that little check mark. There you go.
That'll do for me.
It's gone. So it's no longer available to cast in that little mini menu. This little mini menu keeps track of all the spells you have memorized. They're ready to be cast.
All right.
So that's kind of cool. More functionality than you would not expect. I love it.
Definitely. And I'm not completely walking it, but I'm seeing what's happening. So just a minor jump to understanding.
So for it to automate it some, is I actually created line items for each spell for all the 0, first, and second level spells in the game. I put that article on the forums, so you can go refer to that if you want. But I have them all either as an effect or I have it as a weapon on the combat tab, like the Cure Light Wounds. So I typed all of that in manually to somewhat automate the spells. Until they revamp the system, hopefully in 2021, this is what I do to run the game, to give it some automation. You don't have to. You can just pretend you're playing at the table, just like you do in real life, and just do everything manually. Like I say, okay, I cast Cure Light Wounds, I roll an 8-sided die. Okay, he got 1 point damage cured, so I'm going to go to my character sheet on the main tab, and I'm going to subtract the wounds from 3, so now he has 2 wounds. Pow. You could do all that manually if you wanted to. Or you could do it from here too, the little sub menu. So, you know, if you want to role play manually, you can do it that way as well. You know, what's really funny is, you know, this is how you play at the table in real life, at a live table. You don't have this automation at all. So it's nice to have some of this automation, but we never use it in real life. It's nice to use it though. So I did automate, you know, you can automate some of this stuff to an extent. And really the shortest, the least amount of automation in this rule set is spells. But as you can see, there's a lot more functionalities to spells than you would expect from people saying that. All right, so let's continue. After that was, okay, so the next tab is Notes tab. So the Notes tab, you type it in all manually. It's just all information about your character, their appearance, what they look like, their background, you know, their gender, age, height, weight, all the stuff you'd normally describe your character. The only thing that's part of the rule set that's a part of the automation is the languages. So in the languages field on the right, I usually give an extra language for every intelligent bonus that they have, the attribute bonus in intelligence. That's what I usually do in my games. So this character knows Common and Goblin. So if you want, you can add another language like Elven. Oops, I spelled Elven wrong, so it's not going to work. This is automated, by the way. So you have to spell it exactly or it will not work. Okay, let's delete these. Too many fields. Doop. And delete that field. Doop. And the top field will delete. Okay, so he has 3 languages now. So in the bottom, in the chat window, there's a drop-down menu right above the chat field. And there's a list of spells that you know. So what spells do you see as a choice in that drop-down menu?
Okay, I'm not following you. In the bottom of the chat window, you're saying?
Yeah, in the chat window, right above the chat field, there's a drop-down menu with a chat bubble in it.
Yeah.
So what
languages.
What languages do you have showing there?
Common, Elven, and Goblin.
Perfect. So it worked. If I misspelled Elven, like I said, I typed in elf instead, it would not be one of your choices. They have to be spelled exactly this way for them to work. So let's go ahead and talk in Elven.
I'm talking Goblin things.
Oh, Goblin. Okay. Hello, fellow Gobby. There you go. See, it works. It's great. So on the notes field, that's the only thing you have to look for. And that's fully automated and it works great. Tokens and portraits. So if you look at the Blob, the character, if he's still open, to add a portrait to your character, you're gonna have to double left click it. Or just left click it, sorry. You left click on it and it's gonna take you to the folder, the store, or the store. You can go purchase portraits at the store, of course. But if you want to upload your own portrait you got off the internet or it's one that you drew, you're going to have to upload it from the folder. So you click on the folder button and it'll open up a Windows file browser to your hard drive where all your folders are. Yes. And you're just going to have to navigate to the folder where you saved this picture at. Now, that's how that works. I've helped 5 other players create characters in my campaign so far, so I've learned quite a bit. But you're always finding something new to look at, to learn.
Right. Okay, so I've copied it to the folder.
Okay.
But how do I find it now?
So click on the portrait bubble again on your character sheet. It'll take you back to that pop-up. You have to click the refresh button. Click refresh.
Okay.
And you should see your picture there. And maybe in a...
Oh, okay, I have to click it, the data bag first. Oh, nice. Okay, well, that's easy. Huh?
Yeah. It's in the data. Oh, there you are. Good looking guy.
Yes. Okay, Dick, always was.
So if you take that portrait, I think it works this way. If you take that portrait, left click and hold it down and drag it to the token bubble to the right, it should create, yeah, it automatically creates a token for you.
Oh, God. And then the token can be dragged out onto a map.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I knew it was easy, but I didn't remember this process. Okay, that's very good.
So if you wanted to create a custom token outside of Fantasy Grounds, you will have to tell the Dungeon Master that this is a picture I want to use, or go to an application that creates tokens from artwork, or the Dungeon Master can do it for you. And then the Dungeon Master has to the CK Master would have to import that. Yeah, you'd have to import it to assets. So I opened up in the bottom right hand corner, there's an assets menu, and then there's a tokens submenu.
Yeah.
And he would have to actually drag that token into the data folder or one of these subfolders, and then it will appear. So players can't do this on their side. They just can't do it. Only the Dungeon Master can.
No.
So either
that's what I've noticed.
you have to give the DM the artwork or a token that you created from the artwork, and then he can do all that for you. So the next thing on my list here is the tables, real quick. So on the right-hand side, there's a menu called Tables. I don't know if the player sees it on their side, but
I've been selecting all the things that you mentioned because they weren't pre-selected for me.
oh, okay. So tables act.
So I see them.
Tables. The C&C rule set gives you a whole bunch of pre-created tables, by the way. And I'll show one on the screen right now. Random, 0 level illusion Castle Keeper's Guide play. I'm using that one as an example. But there's a whole bunch of tables in here that came pre-configured with the rule set, which is great. I also created some more of my own for the B2 module. I'll show you what mine looks like. The road encounters. So that's the one I created on the right called Road Encounters for the B2 module. And the one on the left that I'm showing on my screen is the one that came with the rule set that you can use right off the...
Okay.
See, I just clicked it. And it worked. So it's great. These tables are awesome. They're very useful. You can create your own too. So just like you would expect. And it's great that they provided their own tables too, which is awesome. All right. Next is story. Story I use quite a bit because I created my own module from scratch. Story is what you load modules into that the Dungeon Master runs a game from. When you buy a module or create your own, you go to the stories menu and it's listed in here. So like the Caves of Chaos, the player's not going to be able to see this from their side because you don't want them cheating. So here's the Kobold Cave, and I created the Kobold Cave here. So if I want to go to the entrance of the Kobold Cave, you can create chat windows. So I want to go ahead and add the chat to the... I click on the chat bubble and it automatically dumps it into the chat field on the left side, and the players can see that. So in story, you'll have all your links to all the locations and plot and all that stuff in your module, and also links to all the artwork you want to share and maps you want to share and parcels and encounters. It's just like you'd expect from any other module that you'd buy either from Fantasy Grounds or Castles and Crusades or any module that you made yourself. So that's all great. Nothing short there that you would not expect to be missing. I'm sorry, after story is quests. So in quests, it works exactly as you'd expect. You can create quest in here to give experience points. So if they end the plans of the Hidden Temple in the B2 module, I awarded them 600 experience points, and I can actually I put it in chat.
Yes.
Yeah, you can drag stuff in chat.
Showed up in quests as well.
Ooh, I better delete that. I don't want my party having that right away. Oh, I shared it. You're right. When I shared it to the chat window, the letter P for public showed up, so I'm going to unshare that.
Yes.
Stop sharing record. There, I fixed it. Yeah, I don't want players having that yet. I don't want players having that yet. The first quest I created for the B2 module, though, was escorting the merchant caravan to the keep on the borderlands. So I'll go ahead and drag that into the chat window. And that opened up the quest for you. And I gave 200 experience points for that. The player sees that now.
Oh, charming.
Yeah. So the next on my list is NPCs. Now, a few things to talk about NPCs here. The NPCs consist of all the monsters in the Monsters and Treasures book, if you buy that. And that's one I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video. I did purchase that. I do own it. I just don't share it with the players. So all the NPCs are listed here from the Monsters and Treasures, and I also believe I own the other Monsters and Treasures guide too, but for some reason it's not showing up here. So let me go to my library and go to modules and see if I own it. Yeah, classic Monsters and Treasures. It's not loaded, but if I load it, which I'm doing right now, okay, and then I go down to here. There it is at the bottom. So I do have it, which is great. It's got a reference manual too, by the way. So if I go back to my NPCs, I can actually filter by classic Monsters and Treasures. Now here's the aerial servant. So I'll drop the aerial servant into chat. And so all the monsters are here. All the NPCs are here from the books. So that's great. You can also create your own, just like you'd expect from the system.
Yeah.
You can identify them or unidentify them, so they can't see them. They don't not identified item on the battle map. You can do all that. You can fight. I can do a slam attack. I can do damage. There you go. You took 10 points of damage. No, 21 points of damage.
I can't see any of the parts of the interface that allow you to do that. I just have to follow along.
And the other tab shows everything you'd read in the monster manual, Monsters and Treasures.
Right.
You know, all their special abilities, what they look like, whatever. Whatever's in the book is written here in the fields. So it's all here, and including the experience points.
Which is nice.
You don't automatically get experience points from this NPC sheet. You get them from from the parcels. So you'll have to add that up manually, but I'll get to that in a minute. I'll keep this monster open for now to use it as a reference. I'll put it over here. Okay, so NPCs. Yeah, all the monsters from all the books that you own are listed here, and including any NPCs that you created. So if I go to the B2 module, return to the Keep on the Borderlands, these are all the NPCs that I created. Here's Third. I like Third. He's cool. I even have a picture of her. Here, I'm going to share a picture of her with you. Sharing.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sharing it with you. This is what Third looks like. It's from the module.
Third.
Yeah, that's her name. Well, whenever she doesn't speak. Whenever anybody asks her name, she just holds up 3 fingers. That's kind of cool. I'm gonna stop sharing. There we go. So all that works as you'd expect. All their weapons and armor, I put them all in here, so you can click on them. Like here's this wolf spear. So you can add all the stuff to the character sheets, no problem. You can make ability check rolls from the character sheet. All that's here. Their weapons, long spear, attack.
That's the NPC character sheet you're talking about.
Yep, I attacked and I did damage. So it all works just like any NPC. An NPC consists of either a character or a monster. At the bottom of the sheet, there's a tab, there's a check mark for a character or a monster. And it's a different template for either. So all my non-player characters in the modules, I checkmarked that they're characters, and all the monsters I created in my module I click on monster. So you'd have to create a monster from scratch if it's not in Castles and Crusades rulebooks, but most of the time, standard way of doing things is you create a copy of the monster. That way you can add any weapons to it or special things to it. And that's all part of DMing, which is beyond the scope of this video. But you can do all that. All the functionality is there that you would expect. But what's interesting is all the monsters are here. Some rule sets in Fantasy Grounds, including some other VTTs that I know of, don't have all the monsters. They're not there because those rule sets are not fully developed yet. So be rest assured that all the monsters are here. Okay, do you have any questions about NPCs without talking about creating them? Because that'd be a different video.
Yeah, I'll save my questions for then because that's where all my questions are.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. It all makes sense. It works great, but it just takes time to explain it. So items, we talked about that earlier in the items menu. So all the items in the player's handbook is there. All the items in the monsters and treasure. All the items in the Castle Keeper's Guide player companion is there. Let me clear my field so we can see everything in it. There we go. There we go. I'll put that in chat. There. I gave you a pale ale beer. I gave it to you in the chat window.
Why, thank you.
Oh, I shared it. Oh, well. So, yeah, all the items are here. You can add them to character sheets. You can add them to other players. You can add them to the chat window. You can add them to loot. And you can create your own items, too. And that's also common practice, to create your own items, custom items to give out, especially in modules that you create.
Yeah.
But we can that's another subject for another time. There's a lot to explain how to create an item and why, but most of the time it's standard that you create your own items and then share them from there. So then the next thing is classes. So we'll go to classes now. Classes. I have both Player's Handbook and the Advanced Optional Castle Keeper's Guide classes listed. So I'm going to go ahead and filter it down just to Player's Handbook. So these are all the classes in the game. As you can see, they're all there. Even the legacy version of the Barbarian. So if you go to Rogue...
Honest to God, really?
So if you go to Rogue, you get the image of the Rogue. That's there. There's no shortcuts here. So you'd go through all his skills and abilities here. They list them all, and at the bottom of every class, it lists their charts, the menus, the charts of their character class.
Right.
So it's all here. And also the other tab on each character class lists all their abilities.
Special abilities, yeah.
And this is what it uses to dump into the character sheet when you drag the character class into your abilities tab. It uses this tab. So that's what you got to know about that. Usually when a player plays a class, I usually have them suggest that they drag this down to one of their hotkeys, so that way you can always look up their class at the last second without digging through it to the player's handbook. All right, so that's classes. Yeah, races.
You do the same thing with races, right? Drag them down to the...
Correct. If I was playing a half orc, I would drag him into the hot bar down below so I can reference him fast without digging through the player's handbook. So yeah, races are all there too. You go to orc. Is it an orc character? I didn't know orc was a character class. So it must be. It's one of those expansion. It's an optional rule from the CK guide.
Castle Keeper's Guide. Castle
Keeper's Guide. Yes. So all the abilities are there. I don't much to say about that. And then spells. So in spells, same thing. You can sort by the player's handbook or whatever companions that you have, whatever books you have, and you can sort them out by class and level, or you can just type in the name of the spell in the field, just like you would expect. And you can drag this to your character sheet. So that's pretty straightforward. Nothing special about that. You can create your own spells too if you want. Okay, so combat tracker. The combat tracker is the top right hand corner where you expect it to be. And it has the same functionality that you would expect. It has a hide and show NPCs. It has all the fields of initiative, hit points, temporary hit points, subdual damage, and wounds. It has the friendly, unfriendly, neutral conditions of each NPC or monster. It has target field, so you know who you're targeting. It has an offensive field. And then defensive field, same thing, because your armor class and your saves, all that information's there. And then space and reach shows you your size and your reach in the game. As you know, as you know in C&C, if you have a 10-foot reach, you beat initiative automatically. And then effects. The effects field is where you put the effects from spells that players or NPCs casted. So if you go to effects in the top right hand corner of the screen, the effects menu, I can drag these effects to any character I want. So I'm going to drag Protection from Evil Good, EC2, to Nevin. So right now, that spell is on him, and it's got a duration of three rounds. Is that cool?
So when you've gone through 3 rounds of play on the combat tracker, will those disappear?
They will. They'll automatically disappear. They will no longer be in effect. That AC2...
See, that's the kind of automation I sort of was led to believe was lacking, but apparently it's not. It looks pretty good to me.
You just have to add it to the game manually. You have to add it either as an effect or you have to add it to your weapons tab, combat tab. So this actually gave Navin his armor class went up too, and I made that. I posted that article that I created on the subject of all the 0, 1st, and 2nd level spells on the forums. So anyway, I created all these. So that's how effects work. So let's go back.
Nice.
So now also the little flag on the left hand side is whose initiative it is. As you can see, I'm clicking on each one. And also there's a ding audio, and this down arrow for next actor actually cycles through them too. Round 21, so I'm going to put that down to round 0 again. On the bottom right hand corner is next round, so I can actually cycle through the rounds. And if you look at Nevin, his Protection from Evil spell and your Bless spell is counting down, so I'll go to the next round again. See?
Yes, I see that.
They're lower, they're going down. Also, I have the option to automatically roll everybody's initiative right now going. But players can roll their own initiative too, and it'll change automatically on the combat tracker, no problem. Then there's the menu where you can delete all the delete effects, and you can remove NPCs or monsters from the tracker. So delete from tracker will you delete only foes or delete all non-friendlies. The menu also allow you to delete effects either by clearing expiring effects or clear all effects. That's there. You can do initiative by roll all initiatives, roll NPC initiatives, or roll PC initiatives. Those are 3 choices there. Or clear all initiatives, which I just did. Then you got rest. There's 2 kinds of rest. There's short rest and there's overnight rest. There's 2 choices there. Or a 1 hour. There's 3 choices. There's a 1 hour rest too. So you got 1 hour.
Those aren't Castle and Crusade rules, are they?
I think it's leftovers from the Fantasy Grounds default programming that 5e uses.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I mean, a 1 hour rest, your players can roleplay that. So yeah, we're going to rest for an hour. What that will do is it'll cycle through all spells that have a duration. So after the 1 hour rest, those spells will expire. So that's useful.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool. An overnight rest will automatically heal everybody 1 hit point.
Right.
So that's the
cool.
combat tracker. So one of the deficiencies of this rule set that's kind of not working right until they fix it is you can't drag tokens anywhere. You can't drag a token to the combat tracker. And you cannot drag a token to the battle maps. But you can drag their portrait. So let me drag the portrait over here. And Blob the Bob.
Sounds like that's a courting area.
Yeah, they need to fix that. Just drag the portrait and that works. That's all. So go ahead and roll initiative first because you don't have an initiative yet. And a lot of things don't work unless you have initiative. It doesn't really think you're in battle or something.
Oh, God, I can find my sheet. Main. And roll initiative.
Oh, 9. You're first. Okay, so let me.
Like I know what I'm doing.
So it's melee round number 1, as it states in the bottom right-hand corner of the combat tracker, and it's your initiative right now. So go ahead and cast. Go ahead and target somebody else, and I'll show you how targeting works.
Okay, so control left kick. I'm targeting Kraken.
There you go. So
there we go. I see it.
So now you can cast that Cure Light Wound spell on him. Now it will work.
I wasn't planning on doing that because he's a crumb and I don't like him that much.
Well, you don't have to cure everybody. So you don't actually roll to hit to attack him to cast that spell, but you can attack him if you want.
Okay, well, should I just roll the die then? I gotcha.
Yeah, in the combat field, combat tab, what you did was you roll the damage die from the Cure Light Wounds line item that I created for the player. That's what you did.
Yeah.
So that worked great.
Well, what I did first time is I just dragged the +2 attack over into the window, but that was actually an attack.
Yeah. The gold field you dragged over. That was you don't need to attack with Cure Light Wounds.
Second time around, I just double-clicked on the die.
Okay, that worked. Yeah, double clicking will automatically affect what you have targeted. So now that we have combat tracker out of the way, we need to look at the battle map. So I'm going to show you Theater of the Mind. So the Theater of the Mind battle map is the top right hand corner of your screen.
Yes.
And tell me what you see when you click on that.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what I should. Oh, Theater of the Mind. Oh, this is one of your extensions, right?
Yes, this is an extension that I added to my game. But we're just going to use this as a battle map for this example.
Okay, so I have a picture of woods.
Yeah.
And then 4 columns of squares, 5, 4, 4, and 5, overlaid over the picture.
Yeah, if you resize the picture, it actually creates more columns, more squares, more spaces, or shrinks them, reduces them.
Yes, it does.
So there you go. So you can make it as big as you want. So if I drag it all the way open, now I have a whole bunch of spaces. But I'm going to put it back to small. Okay, to conserve desktop space. So what I'll do is, remember you can't drag tokens over. So I'm going to drag over the players to the left side. Blob is here in the middle. So he didn't pop up. So I'm gonna. There you go. I had to drag him around a bunch until you showed up. This is not a normal battle map. This is a Theater of the Mind map. It's a little bit different. So I have to play with it a little bit. And then I'll drag Nevin over. Down here. And I'm going to go ahead and grab some monsters from an encounter. So let's get some wandering monsters here. Wandering encounter. I'm going to go ahead and drag an orc patrol over. There we go. So they're all hidden in the combat tracker. You can't see them. But I'm going to start dragging them over to the battle map. Sometimes I gotta play with it because of this extension. Make sure, do it a few times until it pops up. Okay, so I dragged them over, but you can't see them because they're hidden. So I'm gonna go ahead and unhide.
All I can see is Blob and Naven.
So I'm gonna go ahead and unhide the orcs, and now you can see them.
Ah. Okay, now I see what you mean by Theater of the Mind battle map. So it's not all gridded for tactical movement. It's more like setting out miniatures on the table, and you line up your mini with who you're attacking, right? Something
like that. This is just a place to put tokens so you can target them and give you a general idea of who's in melee and who's at missile range. It's just it's kind of like a marching order thing where it's a rough idea where everybody is, but you don't use it as a battle map because when you're playing Theater of the Mind, the Dungeon Master describes the scene, describes that's going on, yes, and describes what the bad guys are doing. Then the players describe what they're doing, then the Dungeon Master describes what happens after that. or how the monsters react. But we need some sort of guide to go by. You don't have to use this, but it's nice to have something visual. We could just play with just staring at the combat tracker, but that's not as fun.
Although I think the idea is to have these dragged out onto a grid map of some sort, right?
Well, yeah. But
it would be the normal thing to simulate minis on the tabletop, I would think.
So when you
can see where you are in relationship to the door or whatever.
So when you're using this, what's great about this is if you use a battle map, you got players moving their miniatures around, their tokens around like a war game, and they're all moving around the battle map, getting into position, and rolling dice and attacking, doing damage and casting spells, and it turns it more into a battle game or tabletop game.
No, I definitely see the use of this. I think my players prefer a little bit of the tactics on the battle map, and would prefer that over this, but I could see this still being very useful. Like you say, it gives you something to actually target without having to fiddle around on a map.
So about that, you can still use all those tactics in the game. It's just all in your head. And this really only works with small encounters. If you have a very big, large set encounter, like the end boss of a temple with like 50, 30 orcs in there and priests and trolls and stuff, it becomes way too cumbersome to use this with that. This is great for like a patrol or a random monster or a guard room or something.
I was just going to say, it's only the end points or start points in adventures, in my mind anyway, that involve set piece dungeons that would do well on a battle map. But if they're traveling from point A to B, like they just did a 4-day walk from one town to the next, I don't have maps for any of that.
So
that's where I would use something like this.
What's great about this is not only does it provide a player aid of what the area looks like, a picture, but it gives a place to put your tokens so you can use them for targeting. So the way this map is supposed to work is the front two rows, the two middle rows, that's melee range. Yes. Anybody in those squares are in melee range, and if you leave it, you're going to provoke an attack of opportunity. So anybody can fight anybody in those two front squares. Anybody in the two outer rows are considered to be in missile range. They can cast spells, they can fire bows, any missile weapons, but they're not in melee range. It doesn't really matter how far away they are, but that's all theater of the mind.
Exactly.
If they're short range, medium range, long range, that's all in your heads. It's not really represented by this map.
Yes.
So I was able to play the 3 entire cave systems in the B2 module with this. I did not have to use a battle map once. I got really lucky.
Sweet.
But there's some big encounters that's going to happen where they do need that. I know that. I realize that. Okay, so targeting. So when you attack, so if you get your character sheet, and there's 2 ways to attack. You left click on one of the orcs. You control left click on one of the orcs, and it'll target him. So go ahead and target one of the orcs. You control left click. In the combat tracker, scroll down to the bottom. Kraken is like 4 from the bottom.
You're back in the combat tracker, you silly man.
Yeah. So.
All right. Yes. Okay. Good. I see them way down there.
So.
I thought we were still theater of the minding there.
Well, theater of the mind is just using the combat tracker as well.
Yep.
So control left click on Kraken to unselect him because you have him targeted right now.
No, we don't.
Okay, all right, you fixed it. Good. Okay, so right now, if you attack with a weapon, you're going to attack Orc Warrior number 1. So if you double-click on your weapon to attack, it's automatically going to attack anybody they have targeted. If you roll the die into the chat field, it's automatically going to attack the target you have targeted. The only way to change that is to target somebody else or untarget him, or take the attack die from the weapon and drop it on one of the other tokens of a different one. Those are your choices.
Oh, I see. Okay, hang on. Okay, I'm gonna drop the attack die or the damage dice from the Morning Star, or the attack dice.
The attack dice from the Morning Star.
So I could, let's say, drop it on number 10.
There you go. Oops, I can't see it. Let me move my guy over. Okay, so you missed.
Big window craziness here. Oh, I did.
Yeah, you rolled a You rolled a 7. But you had +3 to hit, though. But you still missed.
For all it did me. Yeah, I still missed. So, thanks, Dad.
So the thing is if you had more than one creature targeted at the same time, it would attack both of them at the same time. That's useful if you're casting like a spell that's an area of effect or something. But you have to be careful about that. What you have targeted. See, you just targeted number 10 and number 1.
Yeah, I want to see how that works.
So if you go ahead and roll the hit, and you'll attack both of them. Both will be registered. There you go.
Oh, look, it rolled 2 d20s. Look at that.
And you missed both.
Yeah, I'm a crappy whatever guy this is.
So you have to be careful about that. Rolling to hit doesn't mess anything up. You can just do it again. Rolling damage is kind of different.
Exactly.
Because that automatically takes the damage from the monster or the NPC. Then the CK will have to go back and readjust the hit points again because of the mistake.
Right.
Like, you're not supposed to do damage to 3 orcs at once, so he'll have to go back and give them back their hit points and have you do it again. You need to target only 1 orc.
Okay.
So, I just a real quick review of how the functionality of the combat and combat tracker with a map, and it all works great. It's all there. You have effects. You have modifiers. You have effects. I opened them both up on my screen, and you have the manual modifier in the bottom left-hand corner if you want to do something quick, and you have the combat tracker to control combat completely from round to round, automatic durations if you use the effects, and targeting. So if I close the Theater of the Mind map and I open up a regular battle map, which is I know what most players like to use. And
yeah, I know it's like some sort of plague or itchy boil that you don't like.
That's okay. You have to use these once in a while for the big battles. So I expect to use it.
I will tell you that my players have yet to learn how much work it takes just to make a simple dungeon map. It's not a lot of work, actually.
It's not a lot of work.
But they're starting to appreciate having the maps pre-made for them.
I just shared
They're in a dungeon right now, and that's the way it's going to go.
I just shared a battle map with you. So anyway, I added a grid. Do you see the grid?
Yes.
Okay, that grid normally is not there. I added that as an option. When I run this, here, I'll get rid of the grid. Let's see, where's grid off. Okay, when I run this with Theater of the Mind, I run most of this module without any battle map at all. I just use this as a visual aid to role-playing. Mm-hmm. So the players describe to me what they're doing. Okay, we're looking in the cave. We hug the right wall. We peer around the corner. I hold my torch in my hand. What do I see? And I tell them what they see, or what they hear, or what they sense. And then we role-play throughout the whole module. And I was able to clear 3 of these cave systems using that technique. But if I had to, I can go ahead and turn on the grid. I'm going to roll initiative, see if that kind of shakes things up. There we go. So I'm going to get Kraken over there. Oh, okay. Token works on this one. So go ahead. Can you drag your token, the blob over to the battle map? Can you do that? I'm curious to see if you can do it.
I'm trying.
It's the token. It's the token picture on the left side.
Yes.
Okay, so this is an example of grid-based combat in Fantasy Grounds with the Castles and Crusades rule set. So in this version, I have the grid down, the square combat overlaid down on the map, so you can do grid-based combat, and you can take your characters and move them around from 5-foot square to 5-foot square, just like you'd expect in the other game. So if you want to play that way in that kind of style, that's not Theater of the Mind, you can move your miniatures around like this, your tokens around like this, and play the game and explore the entire dungeon. So you can target NPCs. So let me put some orcs in here, and I'll show you. Let's see, orc. Orky.
Ooh, I think I just targeted Kraken there.
There you go. Do you see those orcs? All right, so you got some orcs to target and kill. So go ahead and kill them. Okay, your blob. So I'll make sure it's your initiative here. It is your initiative, so you can do whatever you want. You can tear them apart if you want. Just keep attacking them and mess them up. All right, now do your damage.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I hit him.
Yep. And he's dying. He's down for the count.
Oh, is he ever?
So if you look,
Nice.
if there's a little icon above his token, it tells you the condition he's in. And
We're gonna zoom way in for that.
he's unconscious,
Oh yeah.
and he's also
He's down with the Zeds, and he's bleeding.
and he's bleeding. Yes, he is. So
That shows up on the combat tracker as well.
so this proves how automated the system is. It works just like you
It
would
is
expect.
actually really good.
Yeah. Let me get rid of that little. There. And also,
I like the I'm attacking this guy and I'm this far away arrow that shows up as well.
and I have pins in this module that give me a description of each room and encounter with the monsters and pictures and whatever you have in that encounter. You don't see the pin on your side, but there's a pin right next to your token that I'm looking at.
And is that like a GM note?
Yeah.
kind of thing?
Yeah, it's like a description of that room in the module. That's what the pins are for.
It meant for you, but not for the players.
Correct. And if there was a description,
Nice.
there is a description. So let me go ahead and normally I'd role play this out and read this aloud to the players, but I'm just going to put it in chat window for you. So there you go.
Oh, there we go.
So you can read the description.
The rough caves.
Yeah, it's cool. You know, sometimes it's good to have this put this in chat after the fact, after you roleplay that area, just for the players' notes maybe, if you want. It's up to you. It depends on the kind of DM you are.
Oh, I'm a real nice guy.
Okay, so I just showed you grid-based combat using a battle map. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off the grid. So if I was role-playing this with Theater of the Mind, I normally would not use tokens at all. I would just use this as a visual reference so the party could see the size of the room and what's in the room maybe if I had that graphic. It's just for a visual reference, and we role play it in our minds, and we can use a Theater of the Map battle map for the actual combat. So I would not put tokens on this map at all if I was doing Theater of the Mind. And the only time I'd actually add the grid to this battle map is if they entered like a large room with a lot of monsters in it, a big set encounter. So I'm able to run this module mostly with Theater of the Mind, but there are some big battles that do need the grid, and then we would use it at that time. But I would not allow the players to use their tokens to walk through the whole dungeon, because that will turn into a board game. So that's my statement on that. So the next subject on my bullet list is the party sheet. So in the top right hand corner, you click on party sheet, and there's 4 tabs. The main tab is a list of all the characters in your game. And if they're not here, you have to drag them from the character select screen and drag them into here to populate this tab. And this is all same functionality as regular Fantasy Ground Fighting rule set. And it gives you all the vital stats of the entire party, which is really useful. You can also roll from here too if you had to. The second tab, inventory, is the same functionality as any other Fantasy Grounds. Has all the party inventory, the parcels, which I haven't shown yet, parcel coins. You can sell all the items to the store instantly. You can assign each item that they loot to individual players in the assignment field. Same functionality, completely, nothing different about this whatsoever. It all works fine. The order tab, same thing. This is the marching formation order. You can put your tokens down and draw on it, and you can create your watch order and your marching order. Same functionality. The experience points tab in the party sheet actually recaps all the experience points totals of the players, and you can award them encounter experience points and award them quest experience points here as well, which, as you can see, I've done already. Same functionality as anything else. You can create them on the fly too if you want. So that explains the party sheet. Any questions about it?
Well, I was just going to remark that as a player, I see only 2 tabs, inventory and order.
Oh, that's right. The Dungeon Master has EXP, Experience Points tab, and the main tab, because we need that to run the game.
Yeah.
It helps us run the game. All right,
Yes.
so that's the end of that. Then that's it. That's everything on my list. I have a calendar that I could show real quick, which is the same functionality as anything else. And I have mine configured for my campaign already. You can also use a chat bubble that tells you what time it is, or use this chat bubble, tells you the date in the chat window. It's a good way to start each session off by clicking that. So that way the players. There's also a log entry too, so you can keep keep a log, and you can look at all your logs. So we have logs, which I have not been keeping.
That's a good thing, and that's all on the calendar, is it?
Yes, it is. I've been keeping my logs on Discord, so I should make a copy of it and put it in here too. I just forgot it was there. That covers the entire review of Castles and Crusades and Fantasy Grounds, the rule set, how different it is compared to others, and how amazingly how much more functionality it has in automation than you would expect. So thank you, Dale, for helping me.
Under the hood.
There is, Dale. You did really well keeping up with me. I'm glad that I had you on here with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so please post your comments below and let me know what you'd like to see more of. If you'd like to see more content. And happy gaming, and I'll see you